My next guest is the host of the Dorsey Ross Show. Excited to have you on. You are a podcast host, a minister, and interesting guy. I've been doing a little bit of research about you, and I'm pleased to have you on and hear your story and your advice and anything you're willing to share with us today.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
For sure. Where are you from, Dorsey?
I'm originally from New York, Queens, and around New York, but I'm currently living in Westchester, Pennsylvania.
How long have you been running the Dorsey Ross Show?
I've been doing it since about June of 2020.
June of 2020. So
Yeah,
you're a veteran. You got about 80 episodes, I saw.
yeah, somewhere around there.
Wow, that's a lot. So what got you into podcasting?
Somebody actually interviewed me for their podcast, and I went on there and I shared my story and what I've been through in my life. And I was like, you know what? That was really cool. That was really interesting. And I like to encourage people and inspire people. So I was like, you know what? Let's try to do one of my own. And I'll have people come on and share their story and what they've been through. And that's how that all got started.
I love it. I love it. I've been listening to some of your episodes today and trying to catch up on who I'm talking to. I like to do a little bit of research, and you've
Mhm.
led quite the exciting life so far. I want to jump in a little bit about your story, and you have a definitely a unique story compared to a lot of people. And you have Apert syndrome, is that right?
Yeah. Apert Syndrome.
Okay. I'd never heard about it before until you reached out to me, and I started
Right.
doing a little bit of research. And can you tell us a little bit about what that syndrome is and how it comes about?
Yeah, definitely. I Obviously most people don't know about Apert Syndrome. Even a lot of the doctors that I go to don't know about the syndrome. And I'm like, "Hey, I have Apert syndrome." They're like, "What is that?"
Yeah.
And most people don't know about it. And it's a birth defect. It's a genetic birth defect. And I obviously was genetic. I was born with it. I was
Yeah.
born on January 16th, 1977. And when you're born with it, your forehead is pushed outward. Your nose and mouth, or your eyes and nose pushed inward or
Mhm.
concave inward, and your fingers and toes are fused together, meaning that you have no individual movement of them, and your skull is also fused or closed. Most of the time when babies are born, the skull opens and it's called a cold spot to allow the brain to grow and allow the brain to function normally until the right age to the brain or until the skull closes. My skull already closed. And my parents were older in age when they had me. My mom was 41 and my dad was 45 at the time. So I was what they would call a supply in the family because my mom started to gain weight and this is not normal. 41, what's going on? She actually told me at one point she thought that she had some type of tumor, possibly growing inside of her. So she went to the doctor and said, thankfully it's not a tumor, but you do have a baby growing inside of you. And unlike today, where you have all the testing, all the technology, they didn't have that back then.
Yeah.
When the doctors delivered me, everybody was and in awe of what that I was born with this type of birth defect.
Uh,
And the doctor rushed me off to examine me, and the doctor came back into the room to speak to my parents because their prognosis at the time was that I was not going to survive. that I would not live because of the fact that my skull was already closed.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought that eventually I would become brain damaged or brain dead. And they said to my parents, the best option we can give to you to put him into a institution.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, because my parents both people of faith and knew and trusted in God, they said, we can't do that. We can't give up on a child that God has given us. And so they said, we'll take him home and we'll see what God will do. And this all happened, as I said, back in New York where I was born. And they had one of the nurses somehow, maybe my nurse or had heard about my story. And they said, you can take him to Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, which is a very famous hospital in New York, and see what the doctors there can help you with him. And they did. And the doctors there said, he can survive. We will operate on your, we will open the skull, and he'll have a lot of difficulties and a lot of operations that he'll have to overcome, but he'll survive. And I had my first of many operations at 6 weeks of age to open the skull and to allow my brain to grow and allow it to function as normally as possible.
Oh, that's incredible. In 1977, that they're able to do those kind of surgeries. Technology's come so far since then, but that's kudos to those doctors. They obviously did a bang up job on you because you're doing great.
Only
So is that it's a genetic disorder? Is it passed along from your parents or is it because of age or how does that come about?
I think it could be a little bit of both. It is passed. It is on the male side of the genetics, so will be passed on from my father to
Yeah.
me. But as far as I know, no one in the family has had any type of disability like my own or
Yeah.
like mine. So we don't know exactly in the line
Yeah.
of genetics where it came from.
Do you have any siblings?
I have one older sister still living now.
Yeah.
I had one middle sister, and I would have had two older brothers, but they also passed at a young age due
Oh, wow.
to other type of medical issues that they had, but it was not anywhere near what I had, what my condition.
Wow. That's so your parents went through quite the ride in life, but being people of faith and people of God, and how was their religious upbringing, and how did they pass that along to you? Because I know you're in the ministry now.
Yeah, I obviously we all went to church together growing up. I went to church with them most of the time. On the Sunday when I was available, not in the hospital or not out playing sports like
Yeah.
normal teenage boys do. And as I got older, I started to go to youth group and experience that. And I've obviously this is a human. Obviously, we're all human in the thing, and things happen. And one of the experiences that I had with the church, and I tell the story because, like I said, we're all human. We all make mistakes. And one of the experiences was I was in the hospital one time, and my mom was like she passed away in 2002, but she was old, and my dad's still alive. My dad's 93,
Wow.
and
You
he
kids.
was that.
That he's going strong, 93.
They were both big supporters of me, big advocates of me. They said, "Hey, if you want to do it, go out and do it." And the youth pastor and the senior pastor at the time, they came to visit me in the hospital. And I just had a recent operation, and they came And my mom had a discussion with the youth pastor because I was 12 or 13 at the time, and I really hadn't gotten an invite to the youth group. And the youth pastor at the time said something to the effect, we thought he would have some type of mental issue or some type of disability issue where he wouldn't like interact well with the youth group or with the other, youth, teenagers. But I still wanted to go. I had a great time with the youth and interacting with them and having a great time with them. And I went to a school to pivot a little bit. I also went to a school for people with disabilities
Mm.
called the Henry's Scottish School out on the island, or Long Island rather. And there, all people with different types of disabilities, what we call non-disabled students attending that school. And I was teased and make fun of both inside and outside of the school. But thankfully, with the youth at the church that I attended in the youth group, they never teased me. They never make fun of me. They loved me and they accepted me for who I was.
You would think in a school, you're going to school with a bunch of people that all have disabilities and they're making fun of you. It's you guys are all in the same place together, but kids can be cruel. Obviously, we know that. And the youth group ministers not giving you the invite. My dad was a pastor and did that for 30 years, so I'm familiar with youth groups, and we were the weird kids, being pastors' kids showing up. We didn't get the invite to a lot of things as well. We were homeschooled and preacher's kids, so I definitely understand being the outcast. But it sounds like you had a pretty good experience there at your church.
Yeah, I got older. They would roast me for my birthday as I turned as an 18. It was, and they would roast me for that. And I had one of the leaders. I obviously, as you can tell, I have a little bit of a speech impediment,
Mhm.
and that's one of the things that they helped me with at my elementary and in the high school where I went to school with. And I didn't know, obviously, good things coming in 18. Sometimes you don't always know what you want to do when you graduate high school. And going to a school with people with disabilities, some of them were very severe with disabilities. Some of them didn't go on to college.
Yeah.
Some of them went on to live in group homes or went on to go home and to live with their parents. My parents always supported me, always advocated for me to do what it was that I wanted to do.
Mhm.
And growing up, I wanted to see what it was that God had for me. And some of the idea was possibly becoming a nurse, doing something in computers, think of that nature. One time I had a discussion with one of the leaders at the time in the youth group, and he said, Dorsey, I see you traveling around this country, sharing your story.
Mm.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you for that encouragement. This kid with a disability, speech impediment, that wasn't on my forefront of my thinking at the time.
Yeah.
And I graduated high school. I went told by one of my high school history teachers, "Hey, Dorsey's not going to be able to make it in college. There's no way he'll make it." I didn't have the 4.0 GPA. I didn't give the grand speech at the graduation, the valedictorian speech at the graduation. So I decided to go on to community college to see how well I would do. And for the first couple of weeks, I didn't do well. And I had a discussion with my mom. She said, take it a few more weeks. And if you don't think you can do it, we'll discuss it and we'll see what it is that you want to do. And God always has a way of guiding us and directing us to what He for us. because I found out that they had a Chi Alpha Christian club on that campus. It was like a peak came around me saying that here are the people that will help, support, and encourage you during your time here at this college. I felt like God had a calling on my life to become a youth pastor. And I went on to what is now the University of Valley Forge here in Pennsylvania.
Man, good on you. You went to community college and then you completed your bachelor's in arts, and that's impressive. There's not a lot of people of any ability doing that. So you're correct. So what did you do after that?
I came out, I went on several interviews to become a youth tech. And every time I went on the interviews, the door would close.
Mhm.
You'll get no call back, no second interview, anything of that nature. And I even had the one pastor say to me, "We will not look at your disability, we'll just look at your resume and see if we think that you qualify for position. And if we think you do, we'll call you back for a second interview." And even that didn't I didn't get a call back from that position either. So I went home back to New York, lived with my dad and everything, because my mom had passed away in 2002. And I started going to a different church than the church I grew up in. And there I felt loved, felt accepted. And I knew from the two pastors that were there, I knew that they would encourage me and that they would help me do ministry, whatever that looked like. I knew that they would help me. And they had an outreach event called Summerfest. And they said, if anybody wants to share their story of what God has done in their life, come up and we'll look it out so that you can share your story. I was one of the ones that went up and said, "Hey, I'll love to share my story." I just felt a prompting in my heart saying, "Send this out and see what I will do with it," meaning see what God will do with it. And that's how Dorsey Ross Ministry got started. And from that time on, I probably visited over so many churches all across the country.
Wow. That's amazing. And yeah, you never know what opportunities. You just have to step up to the mic and go for it sometimes. And doors will open when God sees your heart and sees that, hey, all right, this guy's putting in the work. He's getting up here on faith and taking a chance. And so that is amazing. So you travel around and speak to different churches about your story.
Yeah, I did from 2007 to 2020. I did that. And I still do it once in a while, but not as much as I did before COVID hit and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That shut a lot of people down,
Right.
unfortunately. Ruined some lives and made a lot of people rich. I know people on both sides of that spectrum. It was quite the to do. What are you doing now besides your podcasting? Is that kind of your full time gig or?
No, I wish it was. I wish I was getting monetizing it and everything, but
Yeah.
that hasn't happened yet.
I'm not monetized and this isn't my full time gig either, but I enjoy spreading people's messages. I was digging through your podcast and there was one that jumped out at me. It was done on February 10th, 2020. And that was my brother's birthday
Okay.
was February 10th, and he passed away back in 2007. But one of the things you were talking about is worry and fear and anxiety, and how do you deal with that? And how do you deal with that? How do you deal with fear and anxiety uh, from your side? And
Yeah.
advice to people who are
Well,
dealing with that.
well, fear and anxiety, that's a normal part of life. And there's probably a wide spectrum of what that look like for different people. And for me being a person of faith, I go to God for it when I feel fear or feel anxious. and going back to the Bible to not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition, because you request to God, and if God of peace will help you. What
Mhm.
but again, it's not easy. Just because I'm a person of faith and a man of God doesn't mean that I don't feel fear. I don't have anxiety, especially when people tease me and make fun of me and things of that nature. I feel anxious and I feel fear when that does happen, but I have to remind myself that I am made in the image of God, that I am His creation, that I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
You definitely are. And I have a little bit broader idea of religion nowadays. I was definitely raised in a Christian church and taught the Bible and everything. And I just have a little bit like different perspective. And this is a question that I ask a lot of people in church or in Christianity. And it's a question I'm trying to get answered. And maybe you're the person to answer
That's
that for me, and maybe not. I don't know. I think there's a reason we're doing this podcast today. So my question is, people who have never heard the story of Jesus in the Bible, because I served in the military overseas and in all these different countries, that some people have never heard the story of this. And I know my parents, it's Jesus died on the cross for our sins. And if you don't believe that, you're going to burn in hell for all time and eternity. So to those people out there listening who, I'm sure the people listening have heard the story of Jesus, but what about those people who haven't? How do we, what's their prognosis? What is their afterlife looking like? Do you have an answer for me on that?
I can give you my best answer. It may not be the right answer, but I think there's people out there that say when you look at the sky, you look at the moon, you look at the sun, you look at creation, or meaning the earth as a whole, you can see God in that.
Yes.
And I think that is true, but I also think that looking at that as a whole doesn't mean necessarily that people are gonna say, "Oh, because I see this or I see that, I'm creating that," or not, that they don't believe in God, but then they're going to come to a knowing knowledge of who God is.
Hmm.
I think also that there's a lot of grace that God has
Yes.
for people.
Yes.
And just because if, say, I don't know Christ and I don't have a knowing knowledge of who He is, I'm somewhere out in some foreign country somewhere, and I never heard of God.
Yes.
I don't know if just because I died tomorrow, I don't know if God is going to send me to hell.
Yeah.
Obviously, I believe in a little hell. I believe in a little heaven. I
Yeah.
believe in those two places, and I do believe that if you don't believe, if you do know or have heard of God,
Yeah.
and you don't believe in God, you will, unfortunately, in my faith, in my belief, you will go to hell.
Yes.
But on the flip side of it, if you don't have knowledge of who God is, I believe that there's grace there where He will not send you to hell because you do not know of who He is.
Yeah. I believe that. I believe in God. 1,000,000%. I know God is real, and I know heaven is real. And I also believe hell is real. But I think the way that a lot of people, so I've experienced, because of my life and some of the traumas and stuff that I've dealt with, I've done some psychedelics, ayahuasca. And if you've never heard about it, a lot of people would say, oh, this is out of left field and this is craziness. But when I did those experiences, I've actually never felt closer to God, and the type of stuff that I saw and interacted with. It showed me like, oh, God is real, and Jesus is real, and all these other angels and devils and heaven and hell. And I believe that God is love, and God has a lot of grace for people, and God wants what's best for us. And I know that He has a path for us, and He's guiding us along that path. And I think a lot of people are living in hell here on earth almost. They make their own hell. I believe that God really cares about each one of us. We are spiritual beings, and that He is rooting for each and every one of us to do the right thing, and to be shown His love and to be accepted into the kingdom of God. But how that all works, I personally, and pretty much everybody, if they tell you, I know 100%, it's like by faith, but we're all living here wondering what the big picture is. Yeah, that's just one of the questions that I always try to wrap my head around when I'm talking to people, because I like to see their perspective. And for the most part, we're not guessing. We have faith. Everybody has their own direction they're going. Let's see. I wrote down a whole host of questions here for you. I was just, if they're a little bit out of order, I guess my first question I wrote down was, you were saved at the age 13, I heard. And how did that come about for you?
It was just on a regular Sunday morning service.
Mhm.
And a lot of people can name time, date, location, Bible sermon or a sermon that they heard. I can't do that.
Sure.
I'm not that type of person.
Yeah.
But I just felt on that Sunday morning that from whatever, the pastor said and whatever verses he read, I just felt like that was my day to give my life to Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. So being raised in a church, I would say probably about once a month I was saved. I would listen to my dad preach, and I'd be like, oh man, I better say that prayer one more time just to double check that I'm going to heaven. That's just my own mentality as a child. Not that I don't say those prayers still. There's nothing wrong with just rededicating your life to your higher power and to God. If there's somebody out there right now listening to this, and they've been dealing with, either they've grown up and were born with disabilities, or it's a newer disability, because that does happen to
Sure.
people, what kind of advice or encouragement would you give to somebody, let's say somebody who's maybe they've been in a car accident and all of a sudden they're not what they used to be. You've been dealing with this your whole life, and I'm sure it never gets easy, but what kind of encouragement would you give to somebody out there right now?
For someone that has a new disability, whatever that looks like, I would just say try to find, whether it's in your neighborhood or community or even on Facebook, try to find a community of people with disabilities and surround yourself with them, and ask them for advice, ask them for help and encouragement. And even reach out to me, give my contact information later on my social media. Reach out to me. I would say, don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Know that your life, regardless of your disability now, your life has a purpose. Even though you have you're newly disabled, or whatever that, I don't want, newly disabled sounds weird, but you have a disability now. You have a purpose. You're here for a purpose, regardless of what you believe in by faith or whatever. You have a purpose for being on it and surviving, or whatever that look like.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. My nephew, he blew his hand off with a firework, and that was a couple of years ago, but that changed the trajectory of his life. He was heading for the military, 17 years old, and I mean, that in an instance stopped it and changed his life completely. And I know there's so many people every day that get in. I was in law enforcement for 10 years, and so I've seen tragic accidents or traumatic accidents, and people's life changes in an instant. And my advice would be just, yeah, you may be in a bad place right now, but I think we are all on a guided path. And for whatever reason that happened to you at the end of our life, I believe that you'll look back and you'll go, man, that wasn't the greatest thing that ever happened to me, but it led me to the place I am now. And you either help somebody or you were helped from that situation. And yeah, please reach out to Dorsey. He's definitely more experienced in helping people than I am. I'm just some guy. But
And again, like I said earlier, I have the side of the disability side, but I don't have the side of not having a disability.
yeah,
But I can help, or hopefully can help or encourage those that do have that disability.
yeah, absolutely. So what's your everyday hobbies? What do you like to do when you're not working or podcasting?
Yeah, obviously I like podcasting
Yeah.
and I like to read books. I like to hang out with friends, go out to dinner, different
What's
things
your
of
what's
that
your favorite
nature.
meal?
Re-
Ribs. I love it. I'm a ribeye guy, but they're right there.
Rib and barbecue burger.
Nice. And I think I heard you say you like to go bowling. Are you still doing that?
I haven't done it for a while, but I do like to go bowling, yeah.
Yeah. Right on. Right on.
I heard you said you were in the military with
Yeah.
Veterans Day being on Monday. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's the one day I appreciate when people say Happy Veterans Day, because for all of you out there on Memorial Day, don't tell the guys who are still alive thank you for your service, because it's not our day. But Veterans Day, I'll take that all day long, and I appreciate it very much. So if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, they can get a hold of me on Facebook. Just look up my name, Dorsey Ross. I'm sure you'll be able to find me on there, and also on Instagram at Dorsey.Ross. And if you want to check out my website, it's the www.dorseyross.com.
Right on. I appreciate it. I found you super easy on Instagram, and I will tag you and all that stuff. And you're doing God's work. I appreciate you. You really are.
Thank you.
You're a man of God, and you're an inspiration. So keep up the good work. And I really do thank you for taking the time to chat with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
For sure.